Hello and welcome to the final episode of the 1980s series. This won't be the last time I talk about albums from the 1980s, but it will be the last time I talk about them as part of this series. And for the grand finale, I chose an 80s album that I actually like by an artist who I've been looking for an excuse to talk about on this show for over a year. Captain Beefheart, everybody. Yes, rock and roll's own avant-garde, tracheotomy-voiced madman himself, Captain Beefheart is simply amazing. His music has to be heard to be believed. It sounds like blues rock from another dimension. In the early 80s, he was better off than a lot of people were, because Beefheart, never one to move with the times, did the whole trying to sell out thing about 10 years before most of his peers did. After he did his amazing Trout Mask Replica and Lick My Decals Off Baby albums in 1969 and 1970, he tried to go commercial with The Spotlight Kid and Clear Spot, which are some pretty good albums, but they're a lot less interesting than Lick My Decals Off and Trout Mask. And then in '74, he went really commercial with Unconditionally Guaranteed, to the point where the entire Magic Band basically deserted him. And then he recorded Blue Jeans and Moonbeams with a bunch of session guys. And while Blue Jeans and Moonbeams and Unconditionally Guaranteed are not bad albums, Observatory Crest in particular being a highlight, they weren't what Beefheart was about. And so when he came back in 1978 with Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller, it was a welcome return to form. That album brought back the free jazzy avant-garde weirdness of Trout Mask Replica and Lick My Decals Off Baby, while retaining some of the accessibility of The Spotlight Kid and Clear Spot, creating a sort of perfect middle for Beefheart that many people regard as one of his very best albums. Now, in 1980, he followed it up with Dock at the Radar Station, an album that is considered by many to be one of the absolute best Beefheart albums, an opinion that I happen to agree with. So today we will talk about this incredible album. I realize I'm cheating a little bit by including an album that's only from 1980, but Beefheart only had two 80s albums, and I don't have Ice Cream for Crow. So this is the one we gotta go with. And frankly, why are you complaining? This is a wonderful album. Just go with it. HOTHEAD is about as perfect as an album opener as you can get, with its memorable, driving, repetitive riff, angular drum patterns, and Beefheart's crazy rantings about a woman over the top of it. It's a classic song, and one that always comes to mind when I think of Captain Beefheart. Ashtray Heart is a fantastic song, another stone-cold Beefheart classic. But this time, the subject matter is a little more clear. Beefheart's talking about his feelings on punk rock, a movement that he felt had borrowed things from him and not given him the credit that he felt was due. As with HOTHEAD, the music here is fantastic, but some cool Mellotron moments especially elevate the song.
Each pillow is counted like a rock, the mother-father figure.
This is just a cool little solo guitar track that I particularly like. It's very reminiscent of similar pieces on earlier Beefheart albums, like One Red Rose That I Mean off of Lick My Decals Off Baby. I love this song too. The horns and the masked backing vocals add this jaunty, almost big band sound to the song. Sue Egypt is definitely one of the weirdest songs on the album, and it's possibly my personal favorite on the album too. The music is great, the guitars and the mellotrons and the flutes, which I think are also mellotron, are great, but it's the lyrics that actually get me here. The weird esotericness of it all, there's certainly allusions to ancient Egyptian mythology here, what with the boats to forever, but the vagueness and the mysteriousness of it all is what really gets to me.
Fold up the wall shadows.
BRICKBATS is a fantastic song. In many ways, it's sort of normal Captain Beefheart, you know, jagged riffage, angular drum beats, sort of an odd, almost compartmentalized modular nature to the song. I like many parts of the song, but this is probably my favorite section of it. I like this song, but I really don't have a whole lot to say about it. It's energetic, it's got some awesome bluesy guitar. I have no complaints here. Now this I love. There's such a dark, bluesy menace to this song, with Beefheart's ranting seeming especially sinister. Although the title seems to indicate he's talking about the album, indicating that this is in fact the best batch yet. Telephone is fascinating, a bizarre, paranoid Beefheart rant about how the telephone is out to get him, set to weird, angular music that is like much of the rest of this album, and really takes a backseat to the lyrics. And Beefheart's voice can get a little bit annoying in here. I'm not a huge fan of the falsetto he's using, but I do like the song, especially with the hilarious description of a telephone he gives at the end.
It's like a plastic horned devil.
Flavor Bud Living is an awesome little kind of classical guitar piece. Again, reminiscent of songs from previous Beefheart albums, and this is probably the thread on this album that most strongly links it to the Beefheart of old in albums such as Trout Mask Replica. The riff of Hong Kong is fantastic, a slow, plodding song, easily the longest on the album and one of the longest in the entire Beefheart discography, but it never gets boring. It's got a lot of weird, cool percussion in the background, including some gongs, even Beefheart saying something in Chinese at one point. It's a wild song that if you let it, can easily take you places. Or time, apparently.
Making love to a vampire.
Okay, I take back what I said about Zoo Egypt being the weirdest thing on this album, because this is without a doubt the weirdest thing on this album, and a perfect way to close it out. It's one of those rare songs where the lyrics and the music mash together so well to create this bizarre, otherworldly nightmare, musical nightmare of a track, which the title really says it all, but you gotta listen to the lyrics. The main section is great, but my favorite part of the song by far is towards the end, where it's as if the structure of the song itself is breaking down and mutating, becoming stranger and more unpredictable as Beefheart's crazed rantings reach a fever pitch in the background. At long last, this is the one. The album I've talked about in the 80s series that I can actually say is not only legitimately good, but fantastic. Dock at the Radar Station is hands down one of my all-time favorite Captain Beefheart albums. In fact, I actually might say it's number 3, after Lick My Decals Off Baby and Trout Mask Replica. This album just has everything. It's got the weird avant-garde free jazzy stuff that we loved from Trout Mask and Decals, but it's got some of the catchiness and accessibility that Beefheart had demonstrated on Safe as Milk, The Spotlight Kid, and Clear Spot, and it meshes these together to form a perfect combination that is not my personal favorite Beefheart. You know, I like Beefheart a little more when he's uncompromising and far out, which is what Trout Mask Replica and Lick My Decals Off Baby are. But this is a close second to those two albums. Beefheart's late career comeback with Shiny Beast Bat Chain Puller, this album, and Ice Cream for Crow is one of the strongest career comebacks of any musician that I'm aware of. And in my opinion, this is easily the strongest of that trio. If you're a Captain Beefheart fan, or if you're just a fan of weird, offbeat, interesting music, give this one a try.